Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number, gonna take a look here, 798 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, November 27th, 2025, and it is a bit of a day here at the Beaver Lodge. Sort of wet snow, freezing rain, wind gusts. So yeah, not the most pleasant kind of stuff. But we'll see if that lasts throughout the day or not. But right now, a little well, just unpleasant overall. But hey, that's all right. I'm a little thrown, kids and cubs, if you're clearly paying attention and noticing, because it just hit me that I've just discovered that all the timestamps that I took for the clips I was going to do today just mysteriously vanished. So, yay, that's going to be fun. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have somebody with us, but I'm not sure if they are just doing some work or coming in. So I'll wait for a little message here in the chat to see if somebody has popped in. Yes. Okay. Hey. How are you?
I'm sick as a dog.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm home today as a result of that. So, whoops, I got on the wrong side there. Yeah, no, I had to leave work early yesterday. I was quite ill, and went to bed at 6 p.m. Slept almost 12 hours, and Lola woke me up a few minutes ago, so I thought I'd pop in and say hello before I go back to bed.
Oh my God, I'm sorry that you're not at your best.
It happens. I was sitting there at work yesterday, and it was like I was trying to concentrate, and I couldn't concentrate, and I left at 11, so I was there most of the day. I got almost a full day in, but it was like I wasn't achieving anything, getting anything done. My stomach was just a mess. My head was pounding. The trek home, I really should have taken an Uber, to be honest with you, now that I think about it, because I was dizzy and wobbly the whole way home. I'm like, walk to the train and then train to the station and then walk home from there. And then, of course, I had to take Lola out. And I'm like, why didn't I just check with my neighbor and see if she could have done it? Because we were out maybe 10 minutes. And, of course, I had to practically drag her back home because she doesn't understand what's going on. So,
right.
I don't know, some sort of gastro thing that... sorry, I hit a button by accident.
Timing was good.
I don't know what happened there.
Ah,
So I felt better. I felt much better than I do today. Although I've enhanced the lighting in here a little bit because I've been playing around in the studio, and I don't look half as bad on camera as I do in person.
you look pretty good.
Well, lots of lighting effects. This one's got a nice yellow tint to it over here.
Okay.
See the yellow, sort of
Yes.
50-50 there. So so I'm not great today, but I will endeavor to get better. And I saw that. I watched the Bill Kelly episode the other day. Really wish I could have been part of that, but unfortunately, my work schedule just doesn't allow for things of that nature anymore. So
Yeah. Oh, my friend. Oh, gee, you're getting lots of love here from the Dam Fam in the chat there. Oh,
cool. I will. I'm gonna. I just wanted to pop in and say hello because I haven't been on in a week since last Friday, and haven't done any shorts or growls or anything. I've just been like Monday. I was home all day Monday too. Wasn't feeling good. Went in Tuesday, got some work done. Went in Wednesday and had to leave early. I'm home today. Hopefully, I'm back in the office tomorrow. I mean, I have sick leave, but
yeah. But okay. I wasn't aware when you were telling us earlier that this has been going on for 3 or 4 days now.
yeah, it's been going on for a few days now.
Have you had it looked at yet?
No, it's just gastro, some sort of. I don't know if it's something I ate or something I picked up. And it's like, what am I going to do? Go to the ER where I sit around with a bunch of sick people for several hours? I'm not dying. I'm not dying. I'm not that. I'm feeling 100% better today than I did yesterday.
Okay.
So I know I'm on the mend.
All right.
But if I woke up today feeling as bad as I did last night, I had a fever of, I had 39. So what's that, 101? So I put ice packs on my head to cool the body down, and I started to feel better pretty quickly. And by the time I crawled into bed, I was feeling 50% better than I had from earlier in the afternoon. So yeah, I don't want to bore people with my ailment, but yeah. So I just thought I'm home. I can pop in and say hello.
Well, I'm glad you did, but like I said, just not overjoyed that you're not at your best.
Yeah, I'm far from my best, and I have so much production work to do, and I just no, not happening. I'm going back to bed.
Yeah,
Finish my coffee and go back to bed. And I know it sounds funny, have a coffee and go to bed. Well, yeah, I won't sleep, but just to lie down.
Yeah.
I'll have to take Lola out there in about, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes. So a little boost of caffeine will help for that.
Yeah, indeed.
It also will make the medication I just took act faster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that I've had doctors say, look, what did you just take? Okay, have a cup of coffee. I'm like, really? They go, yeah, it helps the medication act faster. That's why a certain brand of acetaminophen comes with caffeine in some of them. They call it fast acting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to give their title to their name because they're not a sponsor. I'll drink. I'll have some soup later.
Right. Oh man.
But yeah, it's not great. So what were we going to talk about today?
Today I was going to talk about the fact that the Prime Minister had announced some sector relief for the lumber and steel industries yesterday, and that today is the day that the big announcement on the pipeline MOU is going to take place, and whether or not that actually represents some type of relief for the bitumen sector or more relief for Danielle Smith's leadership.
I think it's, I don't, her leadership, huh? She's so corrupt, so corrupt. Both her and Doug Ford form a club called the Corrupt Couple.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Merritt Stiles, Doug Ford said we're calling for audits in Merritt Stiles. I don't know if you saw that. It was just on the Twitter recently.
Yes.
She says, all right, let's start with the $10 million you gave to the strip club owner. I'm like,
yep. Boom. And then she called him corrupt in the legislature itself, in
Yeah, I
the
saw that.
House, and uh, was as they call it in House of Commons parlance, she was named,
Mm-hmm. Mm,
and she had to leave the chamber, and
yes.
she's not apologizing.
No,
So,
no, she doesn't have to because she doesn't feel she should because she's right.
mhm.
Oh no, it's an entertainment. Yeah, it's a strip club. Not that I have an issue with strip clubs. That's not a problem. The problem is it's $10 million of the taxpayers' money. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's the skills development fund. Now,
Yeah,
yeah, of course, the first thought in your mind is, okay, well, what kind of skills development are you developing at a strip club? But it's it's for programs that have skills development, and the money went to a strip club owner,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Funny
So
how that
I'm not
works.
I'm not sure I'm not sure that pole dancing was the skills development workshops that they were offering here. I would suspect that that there was something else on the side there.
Yeah, it was 10 million, by the way, not 10,000.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's that one is pretty shady because they were looking at the evaluations. It seems that Minister Piccini had put his finger on the scale to determine which projects got or which proposals got money or not, and then they are when they did a list of a comparison on the list of projects that was evaluated by the public service and which ones they recommended and which ones got money. There was a lot of um, companies that had low ratings in the evaluation that got money as opposed to people that had high evaluations. And then when you look at the amount of money that companies with high evaluations got versus companies that got low evaluations, it seems that companies that were lower evaluated got more money.
Yeah, weird how that works.
Hmm. Meanwhile, in Alberta, they're wondering how how those care centers were getting funded because allegedly somebody was putting their thumb on the scale there too.
Well,
So yeah, they are very much alike.
you notice that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what's the other thing with Alberta provided how much money to private education in the last year?
Oh, I don't remember those numbers off the top of my head, but it's I think a
Hundreds
very
of millions of
significant
dollars.
portion of the budget are going in to build some of these private charter schools, and
Yeah,
everybody's wondering, number one, why do they cost so much, and two, do you know how many public schools you could build with that money?
exactly. Or at least improve upon the existing. Yeah, it's all a scam,
Well,
folks.
again, it's right. You have the trickle up stuff, that's going on a little less in Canada, but a lot in the United States, where we're like trying to again, take from the lower tax levels and trickle up.
Hmm.
And then with this type of stuff that we're seeing in the unit here in Ontario and Alberta, it's always trying to insert a middleman somewhere in the process that gets a cut or trying to divert public money to private objectives.
Hmm.
So again, it's a trickling up from the tax base. It's we're getting premiers and leaders now that are treating the tax base not as a base of money from which to do things for us, but a base of money to take from us and divert.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's the same things happening south of the border.
Mm.
It's we've all been grifted by a bunch of thieves, for want of a better term. You know. All right, sir. I'm gonna go lie down.
All right, my friend.
Happy to pop in for a few minutes though, but I'll see you later.
I'm giving you the biggest hugs. I'm so glad to see you, but do rest well.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh my God, what a nice surprise. Hey, they drop on down at the Beaver Lodge. You never know who will pop up. And thank you, Kits and Cubs, for the love here in the chat for Mr. Grizzly. Yes, indeed, Kit Saucy, you are right. Novavirus is indeed going around. I just read about that yesterday. Yeah, could be. And yes, you're right as well. Kid playing with 3D. I did read that as well. The new flu season is supposed to be rough this year. It seems that the vaccine may have been mismatched. But yeah, still, thank you, Kids and Cubs, for sending all that love to Mr. Grizzly. That's really important. Um, it matters. It matters. I know I was recently the recipient of lots of love from the damn fam when I wasn't feeling well, and it definitely makes it makes a difference in our day. Definitely does. Right. So, I don't know if I did, yes, I did introduce myself, but I don't think we've thanked our founding sponsors yet. So, big thank you goes to our founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. As I told Mr. Grizzly, we're going to be talking about sector relief and whether of different kinds here. And again, unfortunately, you're going to have to bear with me because, as I mentioned, my timestamps all the work that I did this morning between 5:30. Something seems to have vanished for some reason. I do not know why. I saved it, but it did not save. Uh, but that's okay. That's okay. We will get through. And then we'll talk about, of course, Danielle Smith and that oil announcement today. We don't have too much new about it to say that we haven't covered already, and you want to see what's in the actual memorandum of understanding to be able to comment further. But there are a couple little things to touch upon. However, um, let me see. Let me see what we have here. Couple of things. All right. Just gonna take a look at stuff because I put stuff in a certain order, and I just want to make sure I follow it to like get everything here. So yes, okay. The Prime Minister, yes, did announce some relief for the steel and lumber sectors, and um, he had a press conference. One of the typical announcements, and we'll go and we'll take a look at that. We'll need to bring that up here. See what he had to say. Um, the Prime Minister started off uh, by talking about um, things that he had mentioned recently that we had featured in the speech from South Africa when he was talking about um, uh, the size of the G20 and the size of the economies and the number of people that were represented when he was met there. So he said, this is an important day for Canadian workers and, trying to explain how the world is changing. And he's talking about how our economic relationship with the United States and as we knew it has ended, as he mentioned before when he was starting his campaign, I think to become, I'm not sure if he said that become leader or after he had become prime minister, but makes the point that 75% of our exports go to the United States, 90% of our steel, aluminium, and lumber exports go to the United States. And that, of course, because it all goes for single market, that makes us dependent. But that situation has abruptly changed as well. So when he's talking about a rupture, that's one of those types of things that he's talking about. Also mentions again, as he's mentioned in previous speeches, that what the United States is doing could affect about 1.8% of our GDP, or take 1.8% off our GDP, which is about $50 billion, or the equivalent of $1,300 for every Canadian. So, given that this rupture is happening dramatically, he's also stating that change has to come dramatically. And that's what he is going to be doing. That's one of the points of Budget 2025, repeating his line again that he made, that he's, his tagline, moving from dependence to resilience. With regard to the relationship with the United States, of course. Um, so he's sets that up in the press conference, and then of course mentions some of the benefits that we can be getting from the core strategy that is in Budget 25, which of course he's seeking to attract $1 trillion of investments into Canada over the next 5 years. So far, he's announced about 115 billion, and so that's he like I said, he's out there, you know, um, selling us and opening the doors, and this increase that he is seeking to make would increase our GDP by over 3.5%, or $3,500 for every Canadian worker, which is, he says, more than twice as much as being taken from us. But again, I am wondering about that comparison, as I mentioned before, because the initial number that he gives of $1,300 or thinkings for every man, person, and child, and the number of 3,500 is for every worker, and not every man, woman, and child is a worker. So they're not exactly um, they're not exactly the same. Now, when he says almost double 1,300 is 2,600. Here he's saying 3,500. So again, the math, he might have math for both, every man, woman, and child, or for every worker. But again, he keeps on mixing them, and I wish he would just give a similar one on both so we can actually make a more apt comparison without having to do additional math in our head. This would make the message much clearer. So the purpose here of these announcements that he is making is for helping these sectors bridge the gap that is coming and bridge themselves to the future, uh, often by either retooling or, you know, deciding that they're going to produce different types of products that could be used in different markets, and of course, trying to direct more use of their products to the Canadian market, of course. So we get to the point here where the Prime Minister starts talking to us a little bit about um, what it is that he has done to date. And then he will get in, of course, to what um, his current announcements intend to do, because this is not the first time that he's announced some sector support or some sector relief. So, in this press availability at this point, he goes into some of those aspects. So, bring the minister at this point.
Back in July, we restricted foreign steel imports.
And that speed is a little quick. So let's do that and go back a little bit and try that one more time.
Touché par les droits de douane américaine. Back in July, we restricted foreign steel imports entering Canada's market, expanded training and income support for steel workers, and provided liquidity relief for businesses. The government, for example, provided a $400 million loan to help Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie to transition to a business model that's less reliant on the United States. In August, we introduced new measures to help the softwood lumber industry stay competitive, including financing for company restructuring, investments to diversify products, income and training supports for affected workers, and prioritizing Canadian lumber in home building. In September, we launched a comprehensive industrial strategy with new reskilling programs, a new $5 billion strategic response fund to help businesses pivot to new markets, and we announced that we would create a new Buy Canadian policy across federal agencies. We also reduced red tape and increased loan limits to help large firms access the liquidity that they need. These measures are working. We've received close to 1,500 applications from companies across the steel, aluminum, lumber, manufacturing, automotive, and seafood sectors through our Regional Tariff Response Initiative. In the steel sector alone, more than 230 firms have applied and support's already being delivered. So some examples. Because of these initiatives, Cherubini Metal Works in Nova Scotia is modernizing its metal and fabrication lines to export more products overseas. And Hooper Welding in Hamilton will grow its capacity to produce fabrication equipment required for Canadian and international energy projects. Grâce à ce financement ciblé, les entreprises.
All right. So here, the Prime Minister, of course, is going through. Whoops, let's try this here. Is going through the things that he has put in place already, reminding Canadians of them, which is a good thing to do in this because not everybody gets to follow every detail and not everybody notices all of that stuff. There was even some stuff in there mentioned that I had missed. And I didn't, so there was, it ended up that there was more done than even I thought that there was done. Um, and then, of course, doing a very good thing, giving some concrete examples of how certain companies have been helped already, and stating, reporting back basically on how subscribed these programs are, how many people have taken them up, and given us some feedback. Now, of course, I don't know enough about the industry to know whether or not that is substantive within the industry or not. But people with that's enough information with people who are better minds than mine or more knowledge than mine with regard to that can take those numbers and run with them and do their own analysis. So there's enough transparency being happening there for that purpose. And I'm sure over the next few days, and over the time since those measures have been announced, we would have gotten some feedback, and if there was something terrible or something glaring that was missing, we would hear about it. And I believe that there had been some advocates for the industry and steel that had indicated previously that there were certain things that were missing that needed to be repaired, and they seem to be more positive about it now after these announcements. So that's some very important part here. And then the Prime Minister again switches to French. And then he says that when he's talking about bridging the gap, he's talking about, uh, companies integrating new technologies, launching new projects in order to diversify their markets so that they can play bigger roles in national supply chains, and through these improvements, participate in commercial missions throughout the world. All right. And then he is talking about how the investments that he is making also offer some protection. So let's get this up. No, that is not correct. Why is it showing me? It should be showing me. It should be showing you the Prime Minister. There we go. Weird things happening around. But let's keep going.
So far, they prevented more than 14,000 Canadians from losing their jobs. More broadly, across our economy, employment is rebounding after the early impacts of the trade war. More than 120,000 total jobs have been created since March. What we're doing today is to reinforce that momentum with new strengthened measures to accelerate the transformation of the Canadian steel and lumber industries, to build strong domestic demand for their products, and to empower their workers and businesses to seize new markets at home and abroad. So these new measures focus on three core objectives. First, to further limit foreign steel imports so as to increase domestic demand for Canadian steel producers. Second, to make it easier to buy and build with Canadian steel and lumber. And third, to invest in workers and businesses so they have the tools and the resources that they need to drive this industrial transformation. So let me start with limiting foreign steel imports to ensure that our steel producers have a bigger share of our market. Doing so will unlock hundreds of millions of dollars in domestic demand for those producers. We will reduce tariff-free steel imports from non-free trade area partners from 50% of 2024 levels, as it is today, to 20% of those levels. This will open up more than $850 million in new domestic demand for Canadian steel. Second, we will reduce tariff-free steel imports from non-CUSMA free trade area partners from 100% of 2024 levels to 75% of those levels, unlocking more than $540 million in additional market access for our producers. We'll impose a global 25% tariff on targeted imported steel derivative products, such as wind towers, prefabricated buildings, fasteners and wires, to grow demand for Canadian-made steel. Those products as a whole represent about a $10 billion market. And we will toughen our broader compliance measures to prevent foreign steel dumping. To do so, the Canadian Border Service Agency will be equipped with a dedicated steel compliance team, enhanced detection of false declarations, and expanded online reporting tools. Our temporary horizontal remission of Canadian tariffs on imports has helped Canadian businesses deal with the early impacts of those tariffs. However, over the longer term, such broad remissions would only hurt Canada's steel sector. So to move away from relying on imported steel and to give Canadian companies time to adjust their supply chains to use Canadian steel, those temporary remission measures will end on January 31st, 2026, for steel used in Canada for manufacturing, food and beverage packaging, and agricultural production. Now, the second broad way to drive transformation of our strategic industries is by becoming our own best customer. So we'll build big with Canadian suppliers, investing in roads, bridges, homes, and community centres. A bit later this year, we'll implement that Buy Canadian policy, which will ensure that Canadian materials, including steel and lumber, are prioritized in all contracts over $25 million, and that this applies across federal grants and contribution programs, especially those in infrastructure. To maximize the use of Canadian softwood lumber in housing and infrastructure, we will prioritize shovel-ready multi-year projects that can begin in the next 12 months using, of course, Canadian wood. With a funding allocation of roughly $700 million next year, Build Canada Homes, our new federal home building agency, this alone will create $70 to $140 million of new demand for Canadian wood products and attract private and provincial capital to multiply that impact. In order to build on that, I'm announcing today that we will make it more affordable to transport Canadian steel and lumber across this country by cutting freight rates for transporting steel and lumber interprovincially by 50%. We'll do that through funding directly Canadian National and Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railways. And finally, we will increase protections for Canadian steel and lumber workers and those businesses so they can adapt and seize new opportunities. We'll help employers retain workers by expanding our earlier supports and enhancing our work-sharing programs, increasing income replacement ratios, income replacement benefits from 55% to 70%. We will also provide an additional $500 million to the Business Development Bank of Canada's Softwood Lumber Guarantee Program to ensure that companies have the financing and the credit support that they need to maintain and restructure their operations during this period of transformation. And similarly, we will deploy $500 million in funding under the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Facility, specifically for softwood lumber firms, the larger ones facing liquidity pressures. We'll make it easier for the forestry sector to access federal support by establishing a single window for applications, a one-stop shop to help companies navigate our broad suite of support programs. And lastly, we will launch a Canadian Forest Sector Transformation Task Force that seeks input and recommendations from provinces, territories, and industry on how to seize new opportunities in softwood lumber and create new growth in the sector. Ces mesures de soutien jumelées à celles mises en place plus tôt.
All right. So, the Prime Minister, they're going into French again. But as you can see, a whole range of options and methods being put into place. So, tightening the tariff rate quota for levels for steel products from non-free trade agreement partners from 50% to 20% of 2024 levels. Um, so again, that builds upon what had been done before. For non-CUSMA partners with which there is a free trade agreement, Canada will reduce tariff rate quota levels for steel products from 100% to 75% of 2024 levels, then impose a global 25% tariff on targeted imported steel derivative products such as wind towers, prefabricated buildings, fasteners, and wires, and all the other measures. I don't have to repeat them that the Prime Minister has mentioned here. But for steel imports specifically, there are 4, 5, 6 specific measures that seem to give a very comprehensive way of addressing it with regard to, and then there are 4 additional measures to make it easier to build with Canadian steel and Canadian lumber. And one of the biggest parts in there is to help to work with railway companies to cut freight rates for transporting steel and lumber by 50% beginning in the spring of 2026. It's essentially, the government was trying to see whether or not there were ways that they could help with that, or that companies could get that lowered. And if they weren't, then it's basically just a direct subsidy for 50% of the freight. And probably maybe an attempt for the government to see if maybe those rail companies could lower the fee as well. Um, but yeah, um, then again, so the Build Canada Homes, the Buy Canadian policy, and all of that together is all being used to try to make it easier to build with Canadian steel and lumber. And then there are measures to increase protections for Canadian steel and lumber workers and businesses so that they can adapt. Um, so $100 million over 2 years starting in 2025, 2026 in program costs to provide support to eligible employers in all sectors with an active work sharing agreement, and who to commit to supporting training for employees working reduced hours. This measure will increase the income replacement for eligible workers to helping up to 26,000 Canadian workers in various sectors, including steel and lumber. And then additional access to financing and credit, $500 million with the Business Development Bank of Canada Softwood Lumber Guarantee Program, and another $500 million in funding under the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Facility to support softwood lumber firms facing liquidity pressures. So yeah, a whole bunch of measures there. And so explaining here, right, as I mentioned before, uh, giving the situation with what the United States is doing to us, how much it could cost us, basically what the core of his budget strategy plan can net us, how that it is more. And then, of course, going into then from that point on, with regard to the steel and lumber industries, things that have already been done up until now, and now announcing these specific measures that build upon the measures that were taken on before, and then explaining them in some with some significant detail here at the point. So this is where we're at in this press conference. The Prime Minister then continues on in French to say that all these measures together are going to allow producers of softwood lumber and of steel in throughout Canada to benefit from greater access to the interior market, representing over $1 billion in total when you add both programs together. It's going to create more opportunities for these projects as the internal demand increases, and their supporting industries are going to adapt in order to be able to meet the need. And of course, the goal is to ensure that these industries benefit from the capital and the talent and the time that is necessary to acquire the competence and the tools and the installations that will allow them to contribute to build Canada strong, as he typically says here. So he continues on here in English. So I will present this, talking that he's seeking from all of this investment. There might be a couple of words in French before it starts in English here.
The hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure and housing investments that Budget 2025 will unleash will create significant demand for Canadian steel and lumber, as will our new trade and investment partnerships around the world. Last week, I was in Abu Dhabi, where the UAE announced their decision to invest $70 billion in Canada. In Johannesburg for the G20, we launched discussions towards a Canada-South Africa Foreign Investment Promotion and Partnership Agreement that will deepen investment between our two nations. And we agreed to launch comprehensive free trade talks with India, the world's fifth largest economy. Nous avons entamé des négociations commerciales avec.
So, mentioning basically here, giving us some feedback from what he has been doing the last week when he's on that big trip, and mentioning the three major agreements that he has been able to advance our objectives. And then in French, when he continues, he layers on the other stuff that has been done as well, that we talk a lot about on the show, um, such as the opening of free trade negotiations with the ASEAN nations, with the Philippines and Thailand specifically. I believe yesterday I said Vietnam. That's an error. I think it was the Philippines and Thailand. Um, and then he's also mentioning uh, the accords recently reached with Indonesia and Ecuador, as well as the defense deal with the European Union, and I believe it was a critical minerals deal with Germany. He's basically saying that the countries of the world want to invest in Canada and to build with us, and that we are making the necessary strategic investments so that we can produce and export more of what the world needs, uh, notably steel and softwood lumber. So that's basically uh, where the end of where things end in the press conference. The rest is sort of a bring them home or bring it home closing statement before he stands for the questions and answers, but doesn't contain any new information specifically. So we're going to move to the question and answer period here. I guess before we get to the question and answer period, because uh, I'm going to have to back up with something else that happened. As we know, yesterday we mentioned the "Who Cares" from the press conference in South Africa, and we showed it to you. You saw that was clearly not a, who cares about the workers, who cares about the fact that there are people suffering, or who cares that we don't have a trade deal yet. It was more like, so every single conversation or exchange I have with Donald Trump is not something I'm going to do a readout on, right? Unless I have something to announce. So it's like, you know, asking me, has Donald come take your call? Is he returning your calls? And questions asked in such a way that would give the indication that Mark Carney keeps on trying to pick up the phone and knock on the door and whatnot, and Donald Trump is not returning his calls, right? So the way that those questions are asked have a bias embedded in them that, he doesn't rate with the president anymore, and therefore the president is not taking his calls. He no longer has the power and he no longer has the sway or that type of thing. So Pierre Poilièvre, of course, jumped all over that, as I mentioned on the show. I think that the "who cares" comment was not a terrible thing in and of itself. It probably encapsulates the frustration that everybody that has been dealing with Donald Trump is quite aware of, and the frustration of Canadians watching us do our best to try to negotiate in good faith with a person who has none. But of course, in politics and as a PR guy, I keep on saying you always want to avoid things that create noise. And by putting it there, saying the "who cares," that gives a golden opportunity for Pierre, who will just jump on anything and spin it and torque it. And he has been spinning it and torquing it, to suggest that the prime minister is somehow uncaring or flippant or in some way or whatever like that. And Pierre definitely did, as predicted, take that and ran with that in that way. Which is not surprising, of course. But the prime minister did something that maybe a lot of people would not have expected, which was for me refreshing, actually. Very refreshing, actually. The prime minister, actually, I believe it was in the House, if I am remembering correctly, stood up and basically said that he could have done better, that it was probably not the best choice of words. I thought that this was really, really well done in the terms on the prime minister. I believe that there is a clip here, CBC News, uh, having to deal with this. So let's show you this clip, and therefore you can see it for yourself. Right? It up. There we go. Okay, it is up. And then here we go, kids and cubs.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Before the election, he promised elbows up. After, it was who cares? Before the election, he said the tariffs were an existential crisis. Now he says they're not a burning issue. Before the election, he promised to negotiate a win. After, he backed down to American tariffs, and those tariffs have now doubled on Canadian aluminum, autos, and steel, and tripled on Canadian lumber. Before the election, he promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. After, he delivered the fastest shrinking economy. Why is the Prime Minister before the election so much different than the one after?
Yeah, the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of the election, when I had the great honor from my constituents of being elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some others in the chamber today, I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words. about a serious issue. And the serious issue is what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did make a mistake. He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, Conservatives cared. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them. This Prime Minister has now had 8 months, and those tariffs have now more than tripled. Prime Minister asks, who cares? I can tell you, on behalf of all the MPs on this side, we care about the jobs that are being lost in Lumbertown. Why doesn't he?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government cares about creating jobs in this country. That's why we proposed a budget before this House that catalyzes $1 trillion of investment over 5 years. The member opposite and his colleagues, those who could make it into the room, voted against that budget, voted against Canadian workers, voted against Canada's future. We believe in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are building it.
So, of course, two digs from the Prime Minister on the Conservatives, the one on Pierre not winning a seat, and then the one on Scott Reid and Andrew Scheer having to rapidly needing to find their seat after the budget vote in that answer. But as you can see, Pierre disingenuously twisting the who cares comment about who cares about this, that, and any other thing under the sun that makes the Prime Minister look cold and heartless. And the Prime Minister, of course, responding and stating that, yeah, you know what, who cares probably was a poor choice of words there, and giving it was a very important topic. Mentioning that he had made a pledge to admit when he would make mistakes, and that he did. And this gets layered on top of the Prime Minister saying that he would not play any games when it came to the by-election, and he didn't with Pierre. So you have Pierre here trying to embarrass the Prime Minister with who cares, and the Prime Minister taking such a high road and admitting that he made a mistake, that in the process creates juxtaposition with Pierre Poilièvre, who recently was asked when he lost two members of his party, one who just straight up resigned and one who crossed the floor to the Liberals, whether or not he had anything to learn about his Liberal leadership style or anything to change, and he said no. You have one person who never admits a mistake ever, especially when there's clear evidence of a huge mistake, and one that said, yeah, you know what, I made a mistake there. I promised I would admit that, and that was a mistake. I admit that. Again, who do you want in the room negotiating? Who do you want leading the country? Someone who can admit that they made a mistake and move on and learn from it, or someone who will not acknowledge that they ever have anything about themselves to change, and with a demonstrated record of being unable to pivot. And not very good at understanding the English language. I mean, if he heard that comment from the Prime Minister and Pierre sincerely and honestly believes sincerely and honestly understood that the Prime Minister meant who cares about Canadians and not who cares about the psychodrama about did he take his call? Are you right? Then Pierre would be confessing that he does not have a mastery of the English language that is sufficient enough to lead a country, right? If you can't understand anything you hear and can't understand anything you read, reading and having conversations, being able to understand them is a very important part of the job, being Prime Minister. Doesn't seem to be very good at that part. I'm just saying. So that happened. And then there was another little thing that happened. Pierre Poilièvre issued some type of challenge to the Prime Minister online a while ago that I guess was supposed to be him showing strength, and it turned out to be just very laughable and pretty pathetic, actually. Um, but yeah, Pierre wrote another letter. He writes a weekly letter to the Prime Minister, and well, there was a whole bunch of stuff in that letter, of course. But when he posted that letter to his Facebook, Pierre uh, did it this way. There's a lot of that in the letter itself, but that's Pierre. But this is the part here that was super funny. Prime Minister, since you took office, softwood lumber tariffs have tripled, shuttering logging towns. Conservatives have now forced an emergency commons debate tonight on it. I am challenging you to debate me on softwood lumber tonight in the House. Your schedule is free and you're in Ottawa. Debate me tonight, unless you don't care. I will give you a couple seconds to pick yourselves up off the floor there. Meet me at the schoolyard by the slides by 5 o'clock, or else you're a 10. It's like, is this guy serious? Is this guy serious? Debate me, or you're a poopy head. Demanding that the Prime Minister debate him as if the Prime Minister owes him a debate simply because he demands one when the Prime Minister is one of the reasons this guy still has a job and a seat in the House. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. Nah, I just got back from the United Arab Emirates and from South Africa, and I'm possibly heading to Washington, D.C. next week. I'm very busy, sorry, said the fly to the spider. It saw coming from a mile away. He's literally stomping his little foot and going, debate me tonight. And if you don't debate me, well, then you're this and that and another thing. Can you smell the weakness? This is sad. This is sad. Then he goes in the House of Commons and does that during question period. It's just absolutely impossible. And then that wasn't enough for Pierre. That wasn't enough. Oh no. Dear Prime Minister, you snuck out the back door of the House mid-question period to dodge a debate with me on pipelines. Then you dodged the emergency debate on softwood lumber. Your schedule is open for question period today. You're in Ottawa. Show up for work. Be accountable. Stop hiding. Stop hiding. The guy who went into hiding for how long after he got caught coming out of that Diagolon trailer? The guy that went hiding for how long after he made that comment about the RCMP, called him despicable. The guy who really? The guy who went into hiding after Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor and Matt Genroux quit. Tells the Prime Minister stop hiding. The Prime Minister's not hiding. The Prime Minister's in the United Arab Emirates in Johannesburg negotiating trade deals, came back and is in the House of Commons. It's like, Pierre's the one that's telling people that. So you stuck out the back door. You again, Pierre from the party that had two MPs, the House leader, I think it is, and the caucus leader, pretend that they couldn't vote by the app when they actually were in Parliament, and then allegedly hid behind the curtains, only to then show up and say, "Oh yeah, we intended to vote. We couldn't use it. We couldn't use the app." Telling other people to show up and be accountable. Well, kids and cubs, there was a beautiful thing that happened yesterday because I posted that on all the socials, right? This is on Twitter. Well, somebody saw that, Mr. Bruce Fanjoy, who responded, "You dodged a debate with me in the riding you used to represent." Oh, slam! I think as our old pal Jake would call it, "Ooh, that's the people's elbow." Poof. Yeah, Pierre Poilièvre demanding a debate with the prime minister, then saying, "You snuck out the door. Why can't you be transparent?" And then the guy who fanjoyed his ass out of the writing he used to represent goes, "Didn't you dodge a debate with me?" Oh, so now you're for debates. Hmm, Pierre, not looking good. Not looking good at all. So yeah, um, interesting. Prime Minister may have just turned that "who cares" into a virtue rather than a liability by admitting that he could have done better and then creating that juxtaposition again of a person who is serious and can take critique and has work and have solutions and won't play games and won't try to stage big dramas versus Pierre, who that appears to be the only thing he can do. Very interesting indeed. All right. Um, so, going back to the Prime Minister's uh, press conference, the Prime Minister is first asked, um, and this is interesting because he just announced all these measures, but the first question, for some reason, is about the pipeline thing. And because there are some MPs from British Columbia who are um, reportedly not too happy about how this has gone down.
Catherine. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Kate McKenna with CBC News. How do you explain to your caucus, particularly caucus members who might be quite hesitant, that your government is going to be working with the government of Alberta potentially towards a pipeline deal?
Well, the first thing is I'm blessed to be a member of a fantastic caucus, a caucus that represents every province in this country, caucus members from the north, the largest women's caucus in Canadian history, the largest Indigenous caucus. So we have a diverse caucus in all respects, and we enjoy a very open and engaged dialogue. And I will say specifically to today's announcement, not tomorrow's announcement, I'll say specifically to today's announcement, that our caucus members in Hamilton, in Sault Ste. Marie, in Quebec, in BC, across this country, in Atlantic Canada, New Brunswick, those caucus members have a very good sense of what's going on in the steel industry, in the forest products industry, and they've helped shape this package, as have members of industry, unions, and others. With respect to tomorrow's intended announcement with Alberta, the Memorandum of Understanding, it is about much more than one thing. It is, and fundamentally, it's about building this economy. It's about making Canada more independent, and it's about making Canada more sustainable. So I would suggest that we wait until the full announcement is made tomorrow so you can see it in the round.
All right. So there, asked about caucus management here. Doesn't really directly answer, but highlights certain aspects of his caucus that are important with regard to projects, and brings it back to the announcement of this type of funding and support, and not so much the pipeline project that's going to be announced today. Just a kind of clever deflection, but overall, trying to keep the impression that everything with the caucus is indeed, um, well, not necessarily fine, uh, but how would I put it? Uh, Things are still healthy because these types of objections and discussions can be held openly without fear of reprisals in any type is in any kind of way. um, Later on in the press conference he's pressed on this in French two other times and really doesn't go outside of those of that sort of pat answer that "Hey, we have an excellent caucus and um, and there are mechanisms for talking about these things and and having healthy discussions about them, but nothing uh, particularly more revealing than that, and being kind of short and firm with the answers in that that is the answer and I've answered this already, and basically repeating um, what it is that he said without again adding more to it. So let's go to the next question that he has asked.
Is on U.S.-Canada trade. You've said that you want to get the best deal for Canada and that you're not rushing to any sort of deal. Do you get the sense that other countries regret the deals that they've made with President Trump?
It's a question for them. Look, I think this is what I'll say about other countries. Every country wants to do a deal with Canada. Or if they have a relationship with Canada, they want to deepen that relationship with Canada. And this is a real opportunity for us. Of course, we want to further improve the existing trading relationship with the United States. We stand ready to re-engage when they are. But at the same time, we're going to do a few other things. First and foremost, build this economy, to be masters in our home, mettre chez nous, and invest to make sure our strategic industries are there when we need them. And then secondly, to develop those commercial relationships abroad. And I think you're seeing, given the scale of agreements that we're concluding and launching, and the time frame, and I'll make one last point and then pass to your colleague if I may, which is, when we're announcing these free trade deals, for example, with India, the start of the intention for negotiations, or with Thailand or the Philippines as three recent examples. The intention is to conclude these in a year. Okay, this is not let's have a 5 to 8 year long process. Let's focus. Let's take the opportunity. Let's diversify. Let's build out, and that itself will start to seal. I mean, we have to conclude these, obviously, but we want to have, and a final point on it, if I can, sorry, I think I've already beyond my final point, but this is one of the many reasons why we want to make sure that we maintain the capacity in our steel industry, in our lumber industry, in our aluminum industry, and other strategic industries, and the workers as much as possible, like in their roles, in their jobs, because demand is coming. We're creating that demand, and that's a big part of what this announcement today is about. Yes.
So here we go. Very important and maybe a little extra bit of news in there, or things that weren't obviously stated before. But again, you will see in that answer, that question that was trying to make it about the United States or about other countries as it pertains to the United States. I mean, there was nothing else that he could say really than that's a question for them, really. He can't speak for other nations. But using the question as an opportunity to flip and talking about other countries wanting to do business with us. So that was extremely clever and very well handled. And then taking that answer and adding all of that substance and talking particularly, for example, giving the example of India. And this is the bit of news here, that in all of these agreements, he's looking at not 5 or 8 years of negotiation, but about like 1 year, and let's get something. So I'm not sure that these are trade agreements that would be as full or as comprehensive as NAFTA was or as CUSMA is, because those do take a lot more time. But you could probably get some um, broad agreements hammered out for 2 or 3 sectors, key sectors in that time, and then keep layering on top of that in future negotiations. But in order to be able to create as much demand as quickly as possible, because here again, he's noting at the end that the expediency, the need for speed, is very necessary here, given how quickly the United States is moving and the rupture that they are creating, and the fact that we need to have different markets as fast as possible and diversify our products in our markets as fast as possible. All of this money that he's been announcing here for all these supports for these sectors are to help bridge a gap. It's bridge the gap for that transition. So if we can get these deals negotiated within a year for certain sectors, and then we can start getting some trade, you know, rather than 5 or 8 year trade deals, that can definitely help the cycle and help the transition um, be a little smoother. So maybe not as complete trade deals as we see with other nations, but maybe very thorough on a couple of immediate sectors to get the ball rolling. And then I would assume with other sectors being layered on as trust builds in the relationship. Because that it would be very impossible to do. I think a full, total, comprehensive one in just 1 year. You're going to miss a couple of things if you do that. Um, but still, a very interesting answer here from the Prime Minister on how it is that he sees us moving forward. Um, the next question uh, that he is asked is in French, and then he's asked, why did he not, for the lumber industry, ask for a plan with suspension salariale? I'm not exactly sure how to translate that term in English, actually, but I'm going to guess it's probably some type of strategy that had even greater supports for salary workers, and that's was as per the industry request. The prime minister says that there are supports for the workers in terms of again, I can't explain, I can't understand the term as it is explaining, but in terms of a wage loss replacement, I would guess would be my best guess at a translation at what he's talking about here. And this is true for softwood lumber and steel workers at the same time. He says sometimes it's easier and more profitable to maintain the employment of these individuals in terms of, for example, having them at employed at part time and having their salaries supplemented in order to keep those industries going and alive so that they can be ready to take up more business when we are able to bridge that gap rather than letting these places of work or these, for example, sawmills close completely and having to try to find a way to either reopen them or renovate them to be able to reopen them when we get better. So it's probably easier to do that to sustain them with some help rather than having to shut down and then to try to reopen. All right, let me see. And then he's asked in French whether or not he is going to go to the United States and whether or not he will meet Donald Trump. And he says that yes, he does intend to go, and yes, he will meet with Donald Trump because he's going for the World Cup draw of which countries are going to be in which pools. And since Canada is one of the 3 host nations, of course, he's going to be there, and Donald Trump will, of course, be there at the same time. So odds are that they will, bump into each other. Now, I'm going to show you uh, this next portion that's a bit in French, um, because uh, this is where he adds an additional detail, and he doesn't. So I'm going to put it here for you to see how it comes about, at least facial expressions and tone and all of that kind of stuff, um, if not the words. And I will translate the words for you afterwards.
Quand même. Alors, sélection. On va sélectionner les groupes pour les groupes pour la concurrence. Mais on va avoir une conversation. Nous avons eu une petite conversation hier, par exemple. J'ai eu des conversations avec lui du temps, OK? No. I had a conversation. I went back and forth. But look,
Okay, so basically, in this clip here, in French, first of all, he was laughing at first. He was trying to find the word for. He was saying choisir, and the other person was saying sélectionner for the draw. For the pools, and he said, "Okay, well, but you understood what I was saying, yes." And then he continues on into the fact, mentioning that, well, of course, he's going to talk to Donald Trump. In fact, he talked to Donald Trump yesterday. He says, it's like we talk off and on, and then he goes, "Oops, oh my God!" Like I let the cat out of the bag, pretending that's some shocking revelation here. So, and then. The conversation then slips back into English here. So I'm going to let him take it from here and then explain what it is he is saying here when he's talking about he has talked to the president.
This is the kind of thing I didn't want to get drawn into, which is every little exchange. There are substantive meetings and conversations and negotiations, and that's not what I'm alluding to be clear. And next week, next week is an important event for Canada because we are one of the co-hosts, as you know, of the World Cup, and I'll be participating alongside President Trump, other co-host, and the FIFA president. There'll be the selections of the countries for the various groups, Canada included, and I'll see the president around there. But again, I don't want to over-signal thing. This is something I'm trying to, what matters is the negotiations when they re-engage. They haven't re-engaged yet, so that's the fundamental point.
Next question.
So here the Prime Minister is trying to make it clear that just because he is not talking to Donald Trump about the trade thing doesn't mean that all communication with Donald Trump has ceased. They have had communication, just not on trade. So every little bit of piece of communication, he's not going to say, I talked to Donald Trump today. Whoa, did you talk about? No, not on trade. We talked about other stuff. Did you talk about Donald Trump today? Yeah, but not on trade. The others, right? If there's nothing to report from the conversation, there's nothing to report. And if they're not talking about trade, it's like asking, does Donald Trump taking your calls? Yes. Oh, well, are you talking about trade? No. We're still not talking about trade, but I'm still talking with Donald Trump. So, like I said, doesn't want to get into this. Now, of course, kits and cubs, because he did make the who cares comment and then did the mea culpa in the House, and Pierre's trying to make a big deal of it. That journalists are going to ask about it and are going to try to press him to see if that mea culpa, of course, is holding. Right? So it's natural that the Prime Minister is going to be tested on this and pressed on this. And he was. They've asked him a couple of times about that during this press conference here. Then he's asked another question in French, again about caucus and about the deal with the pipeline. He's basically asking about caucus management, about the pipeline, basically wanting the Prime Minister to scoop himself on the pipeline. And he says, well, that answer about the pipeline, I will tell you tomorrow. He says, yes, but I'm asking you today. He says, yes, but I will be telling you tomorrow because I'm not going to be scooping myself today. So, there's always a couple of moments of well, not always, but there's a couple of moments of levity here in this press conference, even though it's very serious. Now, here he gets asked a bit more of a technical question because it's coming from Bloomberg. So this will be an actual question about the specific measures. Let's hear how he handles these ones.
Bloomberg. Today you've announced tariffs today on the U.S. for the first time, or they'll affect the U.S. for the first time since you pulled back retaliatory tariffs. How do you think this will affect the prospects of a trade deal with the U.S., and are you worried about retaliation?
So I think the first thing to say is that what we have done is to put in place adjustments to remissions and tariffs on certain steel derivative products, as you know. And so these are products that, derivatives is a fancy name for products that are substantially comprised of steel. And it is a much more targeted level of that steel than, for example, the United States has done with their steel derivatives, which is quite broad application. The U.S. looks to calculate the proportions in steel. That approach is global. It's global. It's not targeted at the U.S., okay? So that's the first thing that's very important. So it's a global approach, which is creating some space for Canadian steel producers to fill in. First point. Second point, with respect to the changes we're making in tariffs, so for non-free trade countries, going from 50% to 20%, the sort of tariff rate quota, this is Bloomberg, so I can talk like that, right? And for free trade countries, going from 100 to 75%, the U.S. is not included in that. So there's no change in the tariff for the U.S. or for Mexico in that regard. So I think that answers the question.
On ending the remission, I'm wondering why you chose January 31st, and is this an attempt to add pressure to the U.S.?
No.
Or is it an acknowledgement that you're not going to get a deal?
I'm going to reinforce. It is a global approach. It is a global approach. And what it is, January 31st, is a judgment based on our working with companies that use these products and the time in which it can take Canadian companies to ramp up and fulfill that demand. So you don't do it overnight because people have certain relationships, certain contracts as a consequence of that. But you also don't do it a year from now, or else it doesn't have any benefit for the Canadian industry. I mean, this is, it's $10 billion of market share that potentially, or of demand, the steel proportion of that potentially can be captured. So that's the timing is based on the adjustment timetable. There's no signal. There's no signal to any country in the world. It's just there's a signal to Canadian buyers of steel and Canadian producers of steel that there's an opportunity. Yeah.
Next question.
All right. So there we go. I thought that this was interesting because they're very technical questions about some of this, because it could create the appearance that we are putting another tariff or increasing tariffs on the United States, and Prime Minister making it very clear that that particular part of the strategy that is being asked about is something that has to do with all global partners. And when he's talking about those other adjustments, because they deal specifically with countries with which we do not have a free trade agreement, that the United States and Mexico would not be affected by those. But it's interesting to see, again, the Prime Minister has such mastery of the details of this plan that he can answer a technical question off the cuff and answer it so thoroughly, which is impressive. Okay. So, and I think that's pretty much all I have here. Um, the rest he's asked a couple of other questions in the press conference. Some of them come back to caucus management, and others come back again to talking to Trump, and when did you talk to Trump, and how long you could talk to Trump, and all that kind of stuff, and basically making the point here that it's like you're not hearing about things because they're not newsworthy. It's like when there is news, I will tell you. So, it's like you don't have to ask me every day if I've talked to Trump. Has Trump taken my call yet? Have you talked to us about these things, about these border things? Will you talk to Trump about these things when you meet him at the World Cup? It's like I talk to him about the things that I always talk about. There are some things that are standing that I will always mention this, but clearly that event is not about that. That event is not for that. There's no time set aside for us to get into some big negotiations about that. There's probably going to be no further details about trade after that. Of course, when I get an opportunity to have his ear for a couple of seconds, I will mention something. Hey, maybe we should get back on that trade stuff or something. Who knows? Whatever, however it is that he mentions it. But it's definitely not going to be an opportunity for that, and don't expect any outcomes or developments as a result of it. We're not going there for that. Right? It's like this is an opportunity that I'm going to have to deal with the president for something that has nothing to do with this particular file. Right? So, again, just really trying to say, it's like I'm not trying to build this up. Yes, I'm going to be in the same place where he is at the same time for an event, but this is not in the menu, and the prime minister and the president has not indicated that he's open to talking about this at the moment. So, again, we're just going to let him get back to us when he's ready to talk to us. And in the meantime, we will be very, 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 very busy. So there you go, kids and cubs. Very good measures that seem to have the support of the steel and lumber. Actually, if I'm being more precise, probably has much more support from the steel industry specifically than the lumber industry. When I was looking at the interview with David Cochrane, and who did he have? Catherine Cobden of the BC of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, and BC Lumber Trade Council President Kirk Niquidet. So I'm going to show you a very short period or short excerpt from an interview that he did with both of them. He had them at the same time, just to get opening impressions from there. And you can see that it's very clear that one of them is happier with these initiatives than the other.
Thank you, David.
Well, Catherine Cobden, I wonder if I can start with you. I mean, how much do you think these measures will go to insulate the steel industry from the impact of these tariffs?
Well, the last time we met, you asked me to bring good news back to you, and I feel we're there in the sense that this is going to give us a fighting chance. We're quite grateful and relieved given how dire the circumstances have been for our sector as we endure 9 months of this trade war and counting. But yes, indeed, overall, we're very, very happy to see the advancement on the trade measures.
Right.
But there were many other things as well included in today's package that will help the steel sector.
But just on this, and not to try to bring bad news into your good news, but cutting off the supply of cheap steel, putting tariffs in place on imports of other steel while you transition, this looks like it will drive up the price of steel in the short to medium term as this transition happens. What can people expect to see who are relying on steel products for the projects they're working on?
Yeah, I think that we have to be realistic about what kind of impact that'll actually have. I'll remind viewers that when we put tariffs in place on Chinese steel, everyone told us it would happen the same way, and we didn't see that much of a lift. Obviously, for the steel industry's survival, we do need to see a little bit better pricing environment. The pricing environment has been deeply eroded by unfair trade. And we don't want to build our country on unfair trade. So that is hopefully kind of a value that Canadians share. But we do have to build our way through this crisis. And, we're very satisfied that this is the next step. It may not be the end of the journey, but it's an important next step to give us a fighting chance. And listen, I think having domestic supply of steel is crucial, not just for infrastructure projects, but also defense many manufacturing that relies on steel right across the country. I just want to reassure everyone, we make about 80% of everything that the country needs. And what we don't make, they're not affected by these measures. So we're only asking our government, we've only been asking the government to take measures and steps on things we produce.
Mr. Nicodé, Canadian softwood faces tariffs of more than 45% from the United States. How far does $1 billion in loans and promises to cut interprovincial shipping costs help your industry deal with all of this?
Well, it's a step in the right direction, but ultimately to address the issue, really we do need to get to the table and work out a negotiated settlement with the U.S. There was a previous support package that was announced in August, and that was also a good step, but it was kind of slow to roll out, and we were signaling that no more is going to be needed. It was been an urgent situation. 45% really is unprecedented for the sector, and so we're appreciative. But again, we really need to solve the issue is get a negotiated settlement with the U.S.
Well, what's your level of optimism on that? Because look, every time you think you're making progress with the United States, it goes the other direction, right? And it isn't clear with whether the larger conversations or the sectoral conversations can get back on track, even though we know the Prime Minister is going to Washington next week and will speak to the President. Where do you think things are right now on those conversations?
It's very unpredictable. It's a complex, difficult situation. We understand that, but we have been working with the federal government, senior officials, on what a negotiated solution could look like. And I think we need to just try to get the door open, and there needs to be more engagement. And it's again, it's a complex situation, but we need to make sure that it's a priority. And I think we were concerned that we weren't a priority sector, and I think we've really worked hard with the federal government to just show just how important the forest industry is for the nation. 200,000 jobs across the country, and that are really being impacted. And again, getting a negotiated settlement is going to be in the best interests of both countries in order to support workers and companies on both sides of the border.
Catherine Cobden, unfortunately, we seem to keep adding sectors to the priority list as this drags on, right? And as the economic damage gets worsened. So I know these shifts and these protections on the steel sector is designed to give some time for the sector to adjust and fill some of the gaps here. I mean, how close are you to being ready as an industry to do this? Because I know the changeovers, they're not fast. So how quickly do you think it can be up to the speed that there is a self-sufficiency on the rest of these products?
Yeah, no, I think that, well, the really good news here is that we make most of what Canada needs, and we've lost a major market with the United States. So don't forget, we are looking for a home for 6 million tons of steel. We're looking for that new market. And we have opportunity in Canada now because of these trade measures that are aimed at unfair trade practices. So we have opportunity to make up some ground that was lost. And frankly, the first version of this trade remedy did not do that. I'm really hopeful this version will. And if it doesn't, we'll continue to engage with the government to ensure that it does for our very survival. Mm-hmm. And I would like to, if I may, weigh in on the conversation around the U.S. The good thing about what Canada has done here in the steel industry is it set us up very, very well to have serious discussions with the United States to show that we are as serious as they are in taking action in terms of unfair trade. That is one of the main motivators of the 232 tariffs on the steel industry by the President Trump. So today I can sit here and tell you, by strategically doing these things, I think we're way better placed today than we were yesterday.
So, Mr. Nicodé, they're bringing in a Buy Canadian policy, their housing agency. They're going to use these things to try to create lumber demand. They're talking about a forest sector transformation task force. I mean, how long would a transformation take? Could it replace the U.S. market? That seems difficult. And does Buy Canada and the housing agency give you the jolt for the short term you need?
No, I don't think in the short term. I think that's going to take some time as well. And in terms of some context, the domestic market is about 7 billion board feet of demand. And some of the estimates we've seen is that maybe these programs could boost it by about 2 billion board feet. But the consumption in the U.S. is about 50 billion board feet, and we're supplying about 12 billion board feet there. So it can only offset a small amount of what the U.S. brings, and so this is where access to the U.S. market is critical for us. We are supportive of growing the domestic market. We have a housing affordability issue in Canada, and we've been underbuilt, and we should be building more, and we should be building more with wood. And we should also be looking for markets elsewhere. But again, we just need to keep the overall context in mind, and just how important the U.S. and it's just critical. Market access to the U.S. is absolutely critical.
I've spoken to the BC Forest Minister.
So there you go, kids and cubs. Some quick takes from both the steel sector and the lumber sector. And as you can see, the lumber sector is a little less impressed with the measures than is the steel sector. So I'm feeling that we might have another announcement of support for the lumber sector in a few months. Another adjustment might be required somewhere along the way. But at least with the steel sector, that is a definite market improvement in the comments from, again, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. That's terrible. Catherine, I believe it is. Oh, darn. I'm so sorry. Catherine, yes, Cobden, Canadian Steel Producers Association president. Her tone and sense of optimism has increased since the first round of measures were adopted. So maybe it will be the same thing with the lumber when the next round of measures is adopted. Maybe they will be feeling better as they can be more precise and more tailored for what is needed as it is determined at the time. But yeah, mixed reviews based on the sectors it is supposed to help at the moment. But just wanted you to be aware of that and to see that for yourselves, kids and cubs. All right. So with all of this that is going on in that big announcement, and then today, which is happening as well, is that the Prime Minister is going to be making the big announcement for the MOU with the pipeline that we've been talking about 2 or 3 times already this week, and going into what we assume will be in on it based on leaks and people making comments that who can't be identified officially for the record. But as we mentioned a couple of days ago, we're wondering whether or not this has something more to do with Danielle needing some type of quick win and some type of distraction, because there are some issues with regard to her leadership being questioned, but there's also a huge effort within the province of Alberta with regard to recalls. And it would seem, well, the other day we had announced that there were 6 new recall petitions issued. Well, that was after 1, 2, 3, 3 previous petitions being issued. So the first one was issued for Demetrius Nicolaitis, the Minister of Education in Electoral Division 3, Calgary Bow, and that one was issued on the October 23rd. Then on November 8th, there was one issued for Electoral Division 48, Airdrie East, and that's Angela Pitt. And then on November 21st, there was another one issued for Electoral Division 63, Grand Prairie, Nolan Dick. So that was 3. And then there was the 6 that we read to you on the 24th. So that made 9. And then the very next day, there were another 5 issued. Another 5 issued for Electoral Division 49, Athabasca, Barrhead, Westlock, Glen Van Dyken. Division 53, Camrose, Jackie Lovely. Division 71, Lethbridge East, Nathan Newdorf. Division 79, Red Deer South, Jason Stefan. And Division 82, Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Seal Turnton. So altogether, that is 11. 11. Not 11, sorry, 14. 14 ministers of the Legislative Assembly in Alberta that have recall petitions that are going to be going ahead. Now, the next steps for each of these petitions is that the applicant has to register canvassers. Canvassers have to be eligible electors who have lived in the electoral division in the previous 3 months prior to canvassing and must comply with the canvasser's code of conduct and any guidelines for canvassing issued by the chief electoral officer. Only registered canvassers may collect signatures on the petition. That was similar for the Forever Canadian thing. Petition applicant and registered canvassers may collect signatures from eligible electors for a period of 90 days. Signatures must be collected using the recall petition signature sheets in the format provided by Elections Alberta. Signatures collected on other forms will not be accepted. Only eligible electors may sign. To be eligible, individuals must be electors residing in the electoral division for a period of at least 3 months immediately before the date they sign the petition. The petition applicant must submit all petition signature sheets and witness affidavits to Elections Alberta on or before February 23rd, 2026. Any petition signature sheets received after February 23rd, 2026 will not be accepted. Elections Alberta will verify the petition within 21 days from the date the petition is submitted by March 16th, 2026 if the petition is received on February 23rd. And within 7 days after completing verification, Elections Alberta will report the results to the petition applicant, the named member, the party leader, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Results will be published on the Elections Alberta website. So there you have it, kits and cubs. And David Kleiman-Haga wrote a little bit of an editorial on this, and we always love what it is that he has to say. Always has some good takes and that are very well informed. And he writes here, knowing that he's almost certainly destined for the long jump, metaphorically speaking, it must be mildly satisfying for Chief Electoral Officer Gordon McClure to have to keep approving those MLA recall petition applications. 9 applicants have now been given the stamp of approval by Mr. McClure's office to start collecting signatures to remove their MLAs. So this was written before the additional 5 were added. So make that 14 now. 6 of those targeted MLAs were added to the approved list yesterday, and then 5 more the day after. All 14 applicants seek to recall United Conservative Party MLAs. 5 recall petitions will be directed at ministers in Premier Daniel Smith's cabinet, or at least 5, I should say. Another target is the Speaker, and yet another is his deputy. 2 backbenchers also made the list, and maybe a few more with the additional 5 here. But what else can Mr. McClure do but approve the applications? The Recall Act is the law, just the way the UCP wrote it and then rewrote it to make it even easier to use. The first time under Jason Kenney was bad performative policy intended only to be used against the NDP, if at all, something to keep the party's lunatic base happy. The second time after Daniel Smith had ascended to Alberta's top political job was plain stupid, amounting to electoral malpractice. The UCP was certainly warned that the Recall Act was bound to be a problem sooner or later by Justice Department staff lawyers, if by no one else. Not for us, the UCP cabinet seemed to have decided. So they went ahead, touting the benefits of direct democracy, never imagining for a moment that direct democracy would be directed against them. After all, their opponents were woke snowflakes. Ha ha, we'll show them. This, dear readers, is what is known as hubris. And here, for the 9 that he has, he did the math on how many signatures would be required. The number of verified signatures required to move the process forward is now based on 60% of the total number of votes cast in the previous election, and so that makes it such that if voters in Calgary Bow wanted to remove Dimitrios Nikolaidis, or have that vote in order to be able to remove him. 16,006 citizens, eligible residents of that riding, eligible to vote or eligible to sign the petition, would need to sign it in order for there to be a vote on whether or not they are recalled or not. For Angela Pitt, it would be 14,813. For Nolan Dick in Grand Prairie, it would be 9,427. Angela Pitt is Airdrie East and is the Deputy Speaker. Miles McDougall, who's the Minister of Advanced Education in Calgary Fish Creek, would require 15,454. Rick McIver of Calgary Hayes, the Speaker, would require 12,820. Mohammed Yassin, the Minister of Immigration and Multiculturalism in Calgary North, would require 9,503. Rajan Sani, Calgary Northwest Minister of Indigenous Relations, would require 14,893. I.R.J. Sigurdsson in Highwood, the Minister of Agriculture, would require 15,788. And Dale Nally in Morinville, St. Albert, the Minister of Service, Alberta and Red Tape Reduction, would require 15,700. There will undoubtedly be a few more applications to come. It's unlikely many of the resulting petitions will accumulate enough signatures to succeed, but a couple of them might. My money would be on Dr. Nikolaidis and Mr. Manali if I were going to predict a couple of possible losers from this process. But you never know. This isn't just a grassroots movement, it's becoming a grass fire. The UCP wants us to imagine that there's a vast and well-financed woke conspiracy behind this effort. They also keep trying to persuade us that this legislation was never intended to knock off MLAs like them. Just lazy bums who didn't go to meetings were facing criminal charges or had committed some kind of malfeasance. There's no evidence for the first claim. If you have some, feel free to put it in the comments. It's certainly not the NDP caucus in the legislature, which is far too cautious for this. And it's not unions restricted by UCP legislation to what they can spend money on without asking their members' permission. Who else is there? Pissed off teachers? Well, we'll get to that. As for the second claim, of course, it was intended to be used just as it is being used, except against New Democrats only. Tout le monde political Alberta understands this, especially those who are yelling the loudest. And the applicants, what do we know about them? Not much in many cases, almost nothing in some. There's a geophysicist, a couple of school teachers, a principal, and a school council member. So yeah, applicant demographics do seem to tilt towards a group of citizens who just had their constitutionally guaranteed fundamental rights suspended by the use of the Constitution's notwithstanding clause. More UCP hubris, that. But this is neither a well-financed group of influential activists, nor a collection of high-profile political leaders. It sounds rather more like a group of what Ralph Klein used to call severely normal Albertans. The truth is that the UCP mischievously engineered this law because they thought it would be easy to discombobulate the NDP. Well, look who's discombobulated now. There's never been a bad time to quote the Bard of Avon. That said, though, this is a really good time. For 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard and shall go hard. But I will delve 1 yard below their minds and blow them at the moon. Oh, 'tis most sweet when in one line 2 crafts directly meet. Hamlet speaking, that was Act 3, Scene 4 of the play of the same name. The Smith government is going to end up having to repeal their own silly law. They will look like dopes hoist with their own petard. So yeah, now that Daniel Smith has 14 MLAs that are up for recall, which would be more than enough to lose her government, I guess it would really be important for her to say that she's got an MOU that she can tout as being the thing that's going to save bitumen in Calgary and in Alberta. But then, of course, she's got to then take that ball and make it happen. It's almost like she negotiated herself a no-win situation. Interesting. Well, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please, kids and cubs, tell your peeps and poops all about us because we really love it when you do. It means the world, especially when you share a little bit of yourself. And by the way, kids and cubs, I have something really fun for you right now that I forgot to put out a little earlier. But since we have been talking about Danielle Smith, Theo Moudakis, who you know I love very much, had a very interesting cartoon. And I thought I would show it to you. Oh, for those who are listening, it's Danielle Smith, a baby Danielle Smith, who has been given a pipeline agreement in principle sort of a toy set that has 1,000 pieces. And she is very happy looking at all the pieces. And Mark Carney is walking away thinking to himself, now that's what I call parenting. That's pretty darn good. It has actually been a few days. I have to say he's had some pretty good ones out there. But yeah, that one I liked in particular. So yeah, share our content and tell people why it resonates with you. It means the world to us, and that's the kind of advertising we can't buy. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you, thanks to the Ray Girl, we have a podcast version of our show, and there we can get it by scanning this QR code that just appeared, or by going to by going to podpage.com/the truenortheagerbeaver. Sorry. There's a yawn that tried to come out while I was talking. Let's try that again. Podpage.com/the-truenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, it comes directly to you. You don't even have to go searching for it. We make it easy because we like to help. And if you would like to help us, kids and cubs, then please grab your e-surfboard and hang 10 to the True North Eager Beaver True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where you can click on our buttons or smash with them, like, share, and subscribe. That QR code that just appeared in the corner will bring you there too. Kids, Cassie, and Elaine will definitely approve of you playing with our buttons. So thank you for helping us with the algorithm. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, let's say financial, because we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, the QR code that appeared in the corner just a couple of seconds ago will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you will find the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where a contribution to it helps keep your favorite beaver moist. Because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. Indeed, it is. So drop a couple of loonies and toonies as an enthusiastic expression of encouragement, and that would definitely mean the world to us. And if you are buying Canadian kits and cubs, we can help you out there. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address for a direct bank transfer. Your transaction's entirely Canadian. Nobody in the oligarchy in the United States gets a cut of your donation, and we get 100% of your donation, so it goes further and we can do more with it. So we would thank you very much if you're donating that way. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we have Super Chat and memberships, of course. And we thank you for whatever you contribute that way. It means the world to us. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because your participation and your presence are the gifts that matter the most to us, and we want to hear from you. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. That's the same email address, and you can use it to let us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly, or to make suggestions for guests that we can have on the show so that we can talk to and have some wonderful conversations. And we thank you for all of your help, because everything that you contribute gets worked back into the show to make it better. Now, if you want to reach us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge and on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home, and of course, Kids and Cubs right here on our YouTube page down here in the comments section if you want to. We also have an Instagram page, and we have a family Discord if you want to keep the conversation going after the show. And I'm sure that our valiant kids will put the links to those up in the chat if they have the opportunity. But there you go, kids. All many ways to reach us, and on our socials, the ones that we operate, at least, we do read everything, even though we're not able to get back to everyone. And your comments, again, do get worked back into the show in order to make it better. And we thank you very much for taking the time, because you frequently send us such wonderful kindness that just puts a little bit of extra sunshine in our day. We love reading your comments. So thank you so much for taking the time to write them. Kids and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do remember, we have some petitions. Petition House of Commons petition E6679. You have literally 1 hour and 3 minutes to sign it before it closes. We are at 44,447 signatures. So we did crest the 44,000 mark. That's very good. But yeah, if you haven't signed it yet, there's a last dash. So I will put it right here in the chat for you. Go ahead and sign it. And the other one that we have is House of Commons petition E6821. And this one is to encourage members of the House to write and pass a law that would make it such that Canadian media should be owned by Canadians, operated by Canadians, and delivering news in the best interests of Canadians. The previous petition that I was talking about, of course, is for to encourage our politicians to be a little more honest and not spread disinformation. So both of them need your signatures, and we definitely appreciate you taking your time to make democracy happen. Now, if you live on Prince Edward Island, kits and cubs, as we keep on mentioning, there is a by-election on December 8th in District 2, Georgetown Ponal. The leader of the PEI Liberal Party, Robert Mitchell, is running in this by-election to try to gain a seat in the legislature, and there will be advanced voting starting on November 29th, so 2 days from now, then December 1st and December 5th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So please tell your friends and family about it, and don't go to the polls alone. Bring some friends with you. It's very important that we do democracy. All right, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now at the count of 3, may I please have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. On 1, 2, 3. Oh, I hear you out there. I hear you demanding to hear the cock-a-doodle-doo. Well, here I have it for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Dan Fam, a couple of tidbits for you here. Less than 100 days before the opening of both the Olympics and now the Paralympics. More than 600 athletes are set to compete in Milano-Cortina starting on March 6th, just under 2 weeks after the Northern Italian region finishes hosting the Olympic Games. That will be the Paralympic Games. There will be 79 medal events across 6 different parasports: alpine skiing, biathlon, cross-country skiing, hockey, snowboarding, and wheelchair curling that will feature a new mixed doubles event. There you go. Retired alpine skier Mark Marcoux, a 6-time Paralympic medalist, will serve as Canada's honorary captain. Also, some sad news from the world of swimming. Penny Oleksiak received a 2-year suspension for violating anti-doping rules. The disciplinary arm of swimming's world governing body announced yesterday that the Canadian star has accepted a 2-year ban from competition stemming from 3 whereabouts failures. Oleksiak did not properly inform anti-doping officials of her location for the purpose of out-of-competition testing. The 7-time Olympic medalist withdrew from this past summer's World Championships after being made aware of the whereabouts failures. She said at the time that the violation, quote, does not involve any banned substance, and that, quote, I am and always have been a clean athlete. Swimming Canada CEO Suzanne Paulin said Oleksiak failed to keep her information fully up to date with World Aquatics, but described it as a, quote, administrative mistake. Oleksiak will be eligible to return on July 15, 2027, which is 3 days before the end of the next World Aquatics Championships. The Olympic Games in Los Angeles open a year later. And finally, the Toronto Raptors are on fire, having won 8 consecutive games, defeating Cleveland recently 110-99 to improve to a surprising 13th and 5th after missing the playoffs the last 3 years. The Raptors now sit second in the Eastern Conference. So a lot to cheer for. Amour et bisous, and I will see you tomorrow. I am gone. Bye-bye.